and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. Now, this is somewhat of a different podcast because for the first time, we have managed to secure a guest. Of course, Nathan joins us as usual, but we have the luxury of being able to speak to a man that has been promoted with Middlesbrough, has broken numerous records, and has also the title of the oldest player to play for Middlesbrough. Dimi Konstantopoulos, it's great to have you on. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm very well, thank you. Good to be here. Amongst all the records, there's the oldest player as well, which is, I don't know if it's a compliment or not.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether to include it in the intro, but we thought we'd go with it. It's another title to add to your many records that you have at Middlesbrough. But Nathan, before we get started and go right back to the start of Dimi's career, how are you and how excited are you to have Dimi on tonight?
Yeah, very good, thank you. What an honour. Yeah, Dimi, obviously me and Chris, big Boro fans, and we're obviously younger a few years ago, about 15-year-old, watching you play for Middlesbrough, getting promoted. So yeah, fantastic to speak to you.
Good to be here. Let's get started, boys.
Yeah, let's get going. So to start off with, Dimi, obviously you grew up in Greece. But firstly, I just want to ask, when did you actually start playing football?
Very young age, since I could walk really. I remember myself with the ball. And then when you go to school, football is the biggest sport in Greece as it is in England as well. And you get involved playing with your classmates and on your spare time. But I joined a juniors club at the age of 8, I think. It was a local club, and I straight away went as a goalkeeper because I was experimenting a lot with positions, as you do when you're young. But I found that I was really enjoying it playing in goal. It wasn't because I wasn't good playing upfield, as many people say. I was pretty good. But I enjoyed being in goal. I enjoyed diving and I enjoyed making saves. So, yeah, I started as this and just progressed from then.
Yeah, whilst we were looking at researching into your career, obviously we looked back and found an old Gazette article where it said that your dad was actually a Manchester United fan growing up. Is that right? Some of the Manchester United players, some of the players you looked up to when you were younger in Greece?
Yeah, my dad used to watch a lot of English football. He was a Man United fan. He was a George Best fan. So I started watching Manchester United games. And obviously straight away I identified Peter Schmeichel, one of the best keepers in the world. And he was one of my idol, really, trying to analyze his movements and his presence and in general his personality on the pitch. It was a good learning sort of curve for me because it was different from what I was taught in Greece. It was a different style of football. So since then, I developed the edge and the bug, if you like, to want to go and play in England because I like the pace of the football and the style, the continental sort of Mediterranean, a bit slower style. It wasn't my preference, so I wanted to have a go in England, and eventually became true.
Yeah, so obviously you started in Greece and moving forward a few years now, you were actually the youngest Greek goalkeeper at the time to play in the top division. Now, I mean, that's some achievement. You then moved on to Portugal as you progressed through your career. But really, the first sort of time that you found yourself playing week in, week out and found consistency in a team was actually locally at Middlesbrough, of course, at Hartlepool. I mean, from Greece to Portugal and then to Hartlepool, how did that one come about? And how were you offered a trial from coming from Portugal, obviously?
I don't know. It was this. I wasn't actually in Portugal at the time. I was in Spain, which is a funny story. I left Portugal because the club had financial problems. and I was back in Greece. Then my agent got me a trial in the Spanish club in second division. It was going really well. It was near Malaga. The weather was lovely. It was pre-season time and lovely hotel, and the weather was great. And I was about to sign a contract when this different agent rang me and said that this club in England, they want to have a look at you. I just didn't even hesitate, and I just left without the Spanish club knowing. The next morning they were looking for me on the plane, and I landed in Teesside Airport, and subsequently in Hartlepool.
So did the weather hit you straight away, Dimi? I can imagine it'll be a bit of a change to European weather, of course. Spain, Portugal, and coming to Hartlepool by the coast.
It was the weather, and also that I went from a 5-star hotel to B&B in Seaton Carew. That hit me a little bit as well. But no, I was where I wanted to be, and that was the start of sort of me trying to get into English football, and I was determined to get the job done.
Yeah, so obviously, as Nathan says, there's a slight change in weather and obviously hotel quality from Spain to Hartlepool. But as you had mentioned earlier, was the call from England really the motivation? Was it the style of football, as you say? And was that really the main deciding factor why you thought you would gamble on that trial at Hartlepool?
Yeah, I was just crazy with football. I didn't care as long as I had football to play. I could be on one meal a day, and I'd still enjoy it. It wasn't a problem for me where I would stay or the conditions, really, as long as I was involved in English football, and that was a platform for me to show what I could do. And I came initially on trial, and after 1 month, it became sort of a month-to-month contract, then a bit longer, 6 months, and then obviously I had an offer for 3-year deal in Hartlepool. So yeah, it was gradually building it up, and I was enjoying it.
Yeah, so similarly to your time at Middlesbrough, really, obviously you went in at Hartlepool as a trialist, obviously, as you say, gradually got more contracts. But once you actually got into the Hartlepool team, obviously the team suffered a relegation now. I'm sure when you first get into the team, that must have been quite difficult to deal with, obviously.
Yeah, when I got into the team, we're actually doing all right, because I got into the team the season that we went to the playoff final. That was the season before. Then the next season, I played all the games. We shouldn't have gotten relegated because we had good players. A lot of things went wrong. We did get relegated, but then we're going straight back up, which was was the ask. And that was my last season at Hartlepool. Then obviously I left because I had offers from championship clubs.
Yeah, obviously you say you bounced back straight away, really, but I mean, pivotal of that promotion, I'm sure, would have been the amount of clean sheets that you kept. And for you, just how important was it, of course, firstly, winning the promotion, but secondly, really not finding your feet, obviously, because you'd played and established yourself the season before, but how happy were you to keep so many clean sheets in that promotion season? I think it was 23.
Yeah, no, it's clean sheets always been my target playing, and I've always thought that you're trying to keep a clean sheet any way possible. So that's by being effective. That's why I'm trying to pass to goalkeepers now, being a coach. Being effective is a key word in everything, and if you are effective in the game, then you keep clean sheets, and that transmits to your defense. So yeah, I was really pleased because it was a long season. We didn't start very well, but we got into a run. We had a good squad of players, and obviously we done our job at the back, and the boys at the front did their bit, and that's how you get promotions, as you know from the Boro season.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously you then had championship interest, and of course I'm sure that was down to your form as well as Hartlepool's. You then went to Coventry, which is of course a bit of a change into championship football. you went into the team, managed to get a good string of performances together, and then a young Kasper Schmeichel lands at Coventry. Straight away, did you realise, even at such a young age, that Kasper Schmeichel was going to go on and have the career that he has had?
No, it was see, the Kasper came on. I got injured. I done my Achilles. I snapped my Achilles, and then obviously they had to bring someone in because I was out for about 8 months. When I was back, I was training with Kasper to get back fit. And you could tell straight away, I was buzzing because my idol son, he was training with me, and I could see elements of Peter Schmeichel in his performances. So it was really good for me. I was actually hoping for his dad to show up, but he never did. So yeah, it was a good time, and he's done fantastically in his career, won the Premier League. But you could tell with a mentor like this that you can't really go too bad.
Yeah, and we've also been joined by another guest now. Not that we were anticipating, but it looked like he was enjoying that for the brief spell that he was on camera.
Yeah, my son. Hold on, stop.
Give us a little wave.
Yeah, give us a wave.
Just wants his dad. Yes, so obviously you mentioned Kasper Schmeichel and obviously your time at Coventry. A little bit later during your time there, of course, you mentioned you suffered with a little bit of an injury. You then moved to Forest on loan, and I think you also suffered with a few injuries at Forest as well. Is that correct?
And no, I actually went to Forest. I had a bit of a niggle, my Achilles. Forest asked me to go on loan. Went there, and my first training at Forest snapped my Achilles completely, and I had to stay there obviously for 6 months. And then I went back to Coventry. Took me 8 months to get back to full fitness, and as soon as I did, I was lucky to be snapped by Swansea. Roberto Martinez was the manager, and he got me to Swansea on loan, which I enjoyed very much because the manager was top class, and even though I played only a few games, it was really enjoyable.
So sorry there.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what was Roberto like to work under Dimi? Of course, he's now coach at Belgium, and of course we've seen him in the Premier League with Everton and with Wigan as well. So what was he like to work under at Swansea City?
He's a top manager. He's a very good man manager. He likes to communicate with the players a lot, and he gives that confidence to the players mentally that it's necessary. We had a decent squad, but at the time the position that we're on, it wasn't reflecting the quality of the squad. We weren't as good, but because we're playing with confidence, we were winning games, and that was starting from the manager.
Yes, obviously you mentioned Roberto Martinez there, and your time at Swansea as well.
Say bye to the boys.
Giving us another wave. Are you going to stay and answer some questions?
I'll enjoy upstairs.
Just a little bit camera shy. Yeah, so Dimi, back on Swansea, obviously you speak about Roberto Martinez. Now, I read this also in a Gazette article, and, it does sound like something that is far-fetched. So I just wanted to run it by you. Roberto Martinez was quite keen to actually keep you at Swansea. And it said in this article that you actually couldn't extend that move because you were snowed in and the paperwork didn't go through in time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It was a surreal situation. We were talking about extending my time until the end of the season, and then obviously going for a permanent contract. And we stop it, please.
He wants to be in the interview.
Yeah, we agreed everything, and then I was in Birmingham at the time, which was a 20-minute drive from Birmingham to Coventry. But it was snowing, so I set off about 3-4 hours before the end of the transfer window to go to the stadium to sign the documents. And it took me about 4 hours because everything was shut. And I managed to get there, I think 10 minutes after the window shut. We signed the documents, the papers were sent them, but they didn't go through. It was very unlucky because I wanted to go. Roberto wanted me to go there. It just changed the course of my career completely.
Yeah, as you say, it probably did change the course of your career. But how, upset were you that that didn't go through? Because, you've spoke highly enough of Roberto Martinez in your time at Swansea. So was that a real disappointment?
It was. Obviously, I knew there was interest because the games I played at Swansea, I did really well. I knew there was interest by a few more clubs, but I just wanted to get back there because I was really settled. The most important thing was that the squad and the boys that we had there, we had some good players that were really together and really good characters. So I enjoyable training as well.
Yeah, and then from Swansea, of course, that didn't go through in time. But after returning to Coventry, you then made the move to Cardiff, which, of course, is quite a big move considering you played for their biggest rivals, really. Did you receive much backlash for that move?
I didn't know. I didn't realise how big the rivalry was, to be honest. So I went to Cardiff because they were the most interested of all. But coming from Swansea, I would always have a sort of, like a tag on me, and I was ready to be shot. The fans were not too bad, but I started a few games. Tom Heaton was injured. Stop it, please. And then I stayed, I think, until the end of the season. It wasn't the most enjoyable time because I didn't feel it was the squad wasn't as connected as it was in Swansea.
Yeah, now from obviously moving from Cardiff and coming back, and then I think you left Coventry at this point and returned to Greece. Now, it was during this time in Greece, I think it was when you first were called up to the Greek squad. Now, I mean, how much of an honour was that to be called up for your country?
It's a massive honour. It was my first year back in Greece that I got the call. I knew that the manager was watching me. He came in a few games. I got voted the best keeper of the Premier League in Greece in that season. So, I got the call out of the blue, actually, because our season had finished and I was about a week into my holidays when an injury happened to the guy who initially played the games before me at the national team. They rang me out of the blue and they said, "You're coming in, you're going to play." I was delighted. It was a bit of a shock, but I was really, really, really happy.
Yeah, and obviously you made a few appearances for Greece, and obviously I'm sure it was an honour to just be invited. But were you slightly disappointed that you didn't go on and make more appearances for Greece?
Yeah, of course. When you get the first one, you want to keep playing. You want to keep playing for your national team. But I always said in my interviews that it's something that you cannot really affect. All you have to do is wherever you are, wherever you play, just try to play the best you can, help your team, and then obviously just hope you're going to get noticed. I'd like to play more. I think I could help more, but it wasn't meant to be. So I'm still fine with that.
Yeah, of course it is. Such an honour, I'm sure, to play for your country. But as you say there, as the type of character that we've seen so far already, I'm sure that you would have liked to have played more, but still an absolute honour. As we progress, obviously through your career, from Greece, you went and stayed in Athens, but then after Athens, you then joined Middlesbrough. How did that move come about? Back to the northeast, back to a place that you've probably were aware of from your time at Hartlepool.
Yeah, it was again a bit of a fluke. I was here because my wife's from Hartlepool in the summer, and I was looking where I'm going to go next. I had a couple of options, but it wasn't really anything appealing. And then they rang me from Middlesbrough because Stephen Pierce knew me from Coventry before, and so he rang me and he said if I want to come in, and I said of course. It was initially a short contract, and I spoke to Tony Mowbray. He said to me that if you do well in training and stuff, you can be here for the next 5 years. I went one further than that, which is a good thing. So yeah, it was a similar situation at Hannibal. I came in with something to prove, not to others, to myself, basically. And a lot of people didn't think I could break into the team or even be near the team. But that's what I've done in my career. I've been proving people wrong, and it's a habit.
Yeah, it certainly turned into that through your career. Obviously, you talk about, a few people potentially doubting and thinking that perhaps you were coming in as, possibly third choice. I think at the time there was Shay Given around that season, Jason Steele, Jason Lutweiler. So there was certainly a lot of competition for you to fight with at that point.
Yeah, of course. Through my career in Middlesbrough, there was plenty of good goalkeepers. But it's not about the other goalkeepers. It's about what you do. I think the best advice I got was from my first coach in Greece. It was, he said to me, stop worrying about competition and about the keeper in your club or the keeper playing for another club. You don't try to be like them. You try to be your best version, your perfect version. So you can't compare yourself to others because you're not them. They're different. As long as you're trying to improve yourself, that's all you need. So that's why I was trying constantly to improve myself and my skills. Even when I was in my late 30s, I would still try to find ways how to improve. I think this is the right thing to do for everyone. It's never ending. It's a learning curve for everyone in any position in football. As long as you play, you're still learning. And as long as you coach and as long as you're involved in football, you constantly learn new things.
Yeah, it's definitely a brilliant attitude to have there. And as you say, for not just yourself, but people in football in general, I think it's really commendable the fact that, you've gone with a mindset of thinking that the only person that's going to get me in the team is myself. And, although we had quite a few keepers, it's really interesting to hear you say that, the way you got into the team really was just focusing on yourself and making sure you were doing the right things.
Yeah, because these are the things that you can only affect and control. I cannot control the decisions of the manager because, I'm not him. I can only show him that I can do the job as good as the people who is choosing at the time. But I can't control the performance of the other keepers, so I don't have to worry about that. I only have to worry about how am I going to get better, show every session that I'm better than the others. So yeah, I think if you go in with that mindset, then it sort of simplifies it for you, and you have something to focus on.
Yeah, definitely. And, just moving into your Middlesbrough career now, really, it was actually the manager that brought you in, which left pretty much halfway through that season and was, of course, replaced by Aitor Karanka. Now, Nathan, when Aitor Karanka's name was first mentioned, I know I can speak for myself and probably you as well. I wasn't all too much sure about who Aitor Karanka was and what he was going to bring to Middlesbrough. I mean, can you remember the days when he was rumoured and then he eventually took over?
Yeah, it was a strange time. I think the first time I really heard of it was on BBC Tees on the radio, and they said that he was obviously Jose Mourinho's assistant at Real Madrid, but apart from that, didn't really have all too much idea of who he was. So, Dimi, what were your first impressions of Aitor when he first came to the club, and did you immediately see how he could be a fantastic coach?
Well, I knew exactly who he was by his playing career. I knew he's playing the Champions League. I know he's played with great players and won the Champions League and many trophies. And I know he had worked with Mourinho. I didn't know him personally as a character, so I was excited. So when he first came in, everyone was in a bit. I think all the players were in a bit of an awe. Uh, uh, you know, watching every word he said, and he was telling us stories about his time at Real Madrid. But straight away, you could tell he was he had a plan, and he had a way he wanted to execute that plan, and it was through a lot of perfectionism, which is a good thing because he raised the quality level of each one. So he wanted things to be done right, and he wouldn't give many opportunities. You know, he would give a few opportunities. If you couldn't do it for him, then he was ruthless. And some people can take that and grow, and some people, will fold. And there was players that folded, but the ones who grew with him were done really well.
Yeah, now obviously when Karanka come in, we had a good end to that season, didn't we? And then the following season, straight away, there was some quite eye-catching additions. Of course, Patrick Bamford, who went on to have a great first loan spell. Kike come in and Adam Clayton as well. When you saw these types of players coming in, was there a belief amongst the group early, even in pre-season, that perhaps we can give this a go this season?
I knew from the manager, from his, he wasn't there just to, to be mid-table or to just try to stay in the championship. I knew he came in and he wants to get out of this league. So I knew that he was going to bring players that he would think they would push us to do that. He actually told us in preseason, he said, to everyone else, we say that we're just, we're trying to be in the top half, but amongst us here, we know that the goal is to get promoted either through playoffs or automatic. So he set the goals straight away. But obviously seeing good players coming in, then, you start believing even more. And we did have a great season, apart from the ending.
Yeah, we'll get onto that slightly later, as much as we probably don't want to talk about that day again. But into the playoff final season, you found yourself actually starting the season behind Thomas Mayers, and then eventually won your place. And then from that point onwards, really, the team kicked on, and as did you. And really from early on, as soon as sort of Middlesbrough hit form, it was Bournemouth and Watford. It was sort of the 3-horse race, I seem to remember. There was some massive results in that season, just thinking of, ironically, I think it was the game that you first come into the team, Huddersfield away, and then 2 quite magnificent goals from Grant Ledbetter, and of course the late penalty. I mean, when sort of at the moment we're seeing Middlesbrough score a lot of late goals, but even when Grant Ledbetter puts that penalty away in the sort of final seconds, really, of that game, are they the moments where you think, yeah, this team's got something about it, it can really challenge and dig in?
Yeah, it wasn't just that. It was the game after that at Cardiff, straight away. We went and won 1-0, which was a tough place to go because they had good players. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager. We didn't. We scored and then we defended really well. And it's not just individually, but collectively, you start believing that, we've got something good here. It's about consistency and continuing these performances, which is not easy, playing the championship. But the more you win and the more good performances you have, the belief is there. And then, you believe in each other, and then that brings good results.
Yeah, you talk about the group there and, some of the results that we had. I think from my memory, there was a 4-1 win against Ipswich at the Riverside, which really sticks out in my mind. But in sort of, them seasons where the club is nearer the top of the table, it's often actually sort of the hard-fought 1-0 wins, away at rivals and things like that stick out. And of course, you can probably tell I'm going to mention that away trip to Carrow Road quite late on in the season. I think it was an early goal from Albert Adoma that gave Boro the lead. But, what a hard-fought game that was. And I'm sure you probably wasted a combined 10 minutes taking goal kicks and then ensuring we got over the line.
I had instructions from the bench. It wasn't. They were willing to for me to take the yellow card, to be fair, because we were under the coach. We scored early and we were defending pretty much most of the game. Norwich had a good team. Even though we beat them 4-0, I think the first game at the Riverside, we absolutely killed them. Second game under new manager, they were a lot better. So we knew we were going into battle. Actually, me and Gibbo talked about it. I remember that in the car park before we go to the airplane. We're saying we're going into battle, but we were ready for it. And the boys in front of me done magnificently. I didn't have a whole lot to do, from what I remember, apart from keeping my concentration and avoid making mistakes. But we defended really well as a team. We could have scored, I think, another one on the counter later on. But we took the points and we were really happy because it was a really, these are, as you said, the games that stand out.
Yeah, and one other game which stands out, and perhaps for the wrong reasons, really, actually, was that trip at Craven Cottage, another away trip, of course. Now, off to a very bad start, of course. I think George Friend was sent off, and then we were. I think it went 3-0 straight away, if I remember correctly. Nathan, you might need to correct me on that.
2-0, I think.
2, I think, yeah.
2-1, 3-1, and
yeah.
3.
And then we eventually pull that back, of course. And then the moment which, of course, sticks in a lot of people's head is you being told to go up for the corner. Now, firstly, Dimi, did you, given the situation we were in, and I think really the decision behind it was because to stand any chance of automatic promotion going into the final games, we had to win that game. Now, were you looking at the bench, and when you were told to go up for the corner, what did you make of that decision?
Yeah, I was edging to go, but I had to get the nod from the bench. I can't just make my own decision and go. So I was looking at the bench, asking if I want to go. So the manager told me go. But the problem is, for some reason, we didn't set the ball and took our time for me to get there. I remember the corner got hit while I was still running. I was still outside the box. So it was a bit of a mess, And then obviously the counter and the ricochets from Albert, I think, and Tomo end up, 1v1. But, it was the correct decision, 100%. You just, it's the last kick of the game, really. You're trying to maximize your chances to get a win. And, sometimes that's what it takes. But we just didn't set it up properly to actually allow everyone to go in there and battle for the ball. The corner came in really quickly when I don't know, I'm not sure why.
So obviously, yeah, you talk about not being in the box, but had, the corner taker that day taken his time, would you have fancied yourself to get your head on it perhaps? We saw Alisson score last season. Would you have quite fancied, rising above a Fulham defender and, being the hero of that day?
Oh, no, I would give it a go. I know I would go 100 miles inside the challenge and see what happens. But I was ready for it. I thought if the ball comes near me, I'm winning it. But it wasn't meant to be, and I just turned up the wrong team to score in the end. But this is football, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And from that point onwards, of course, that result pretty much ensured that the team would finish in the playoffs. Just going into them 2 legs against Brentford now, Of course, positive results in both games, but just talk us through really both games and how professionally the team dealt with it, to be honest.
It really did. Even though the pressure was all on us because Brentford were an outsider that got into playoffs the last game of the season. They weren't even near, I don't think. Derby, I think, was the favourites to get in the playoffs. So for them, it was nothing to lose games. And we knew they're going to be tough games. There were tough games, especially the first one at Brentford. We scored early, and then we had to defend. Obviously, I made that mistake, misjudgment. Obviously, having the full Brentford end fans shouting, "It's all your fault!" After that goal went in, it's good banter. I enjoyed it, but it makes it very. You think that you're not going to get the win because of that. But I made another good save after this, and then Amora went and scored the winner, which I was buzzing about because we won the game. My mistake didn't cost us very much.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
in hindsight, it's funny to laugh at, isn't it, Dimi?
Yeah.
A mistake, but at the end of the day, 5-1 on aggregate in that second game at the Riverside, the second leg, 3-0 win. One of the most professional performances I think I've ever seen from Middlesbrough.
Yes, they had no chance. They had no chance. The second game, we weren't going to get away with anything from the game. We were very determined to put all the doubts to bed, and we did from the first minute. And obviously, you have to perform, but we knew we're not going to give anything away starting from the back, and we knew the quality we had at the front would get us something.
Yeah, obviously there was a lot of quality in that team, and it was actually, I think Patrick Bamford was injured for was it both legs or the second leg? I think it was. I know he definitely missed it because Kike come into the team, but rightly, yeah. And as you say, I think, and Nathan as well, I can't remember really. There's a few that stick out in my mind across those two seasons, but that Brentford game, from, as you say, from minute one, I never really felt in such I'm saying a high pressure game. I wasn't playing, but a game where you'd think there would be nerves. I can't even really remember any because the forward players were on song and yourself and the defenders just headed and cleared everything really.
Yeah, we were not in control of the game. It's literally we brushed them aside. There was a bit of a talk, I think, after the first game. A few of the Brentford players, got a bit of a spat the dummy out about some stuff, and like they were saying they're the better team and we were lucky, blah blah. So we just wanted to, show everyone that they're not correct of what they're saying, and that what we did all season, we done it on merit, and we deserve to be where we're at, and we've done that, and then that's the best way to finish the sort of a two-leg game.
Yeah, obviously you speak about certain individuals from Brentford. I think Harley Dean made himself look a little bit silly. He's one I certainly remember. But going into, of course, the playoff final now, as much as I don't really want to talk about it, and I'm sure you probably don't either, of course, we have to cover it. And, since that game, of course, Nathan and myself were both there. But at the time, no one really knew about the preparation for the game. We've since heard about buses being late and being stuck in traffic. I mean, before we go into the game, did everything just go wrong that day?
Not until we got on the bus. We were fine. We had a breakfast, we had a pre-match, and we were ready to go. And no one knew that, we set off, the usual amount of time that we would leave from before a game. But obviously wasn't any game. It was in a game that 80,000 people would go and watch. And I had no idea that we didn't have a police escort with us. And because it was going to be busy. So, but we didn't, and we ended up getting stuck in the traffic, and we end up, I think it was about 40 minutes, 45 minutes before kickoff that we arrived at the ground. Obviously, that throws everything into a bit of a mess. All the preparation, it's not right. It's not, the timing is not right. Everything is rushed. So we're going into the game not in the right frame of mind, and you could tell because the first 20 minutes we were 2-0 down, and I think that was the game over. So yeah, I think it played a part. We didn't play well on the day, that's for sure. But I think the way we started was dictated the rest of the game, which was a shame.
Yeah, like you say, obviously with them two early goals really from Norwich, it never sort of seemed like we were going to get back into the game. But, as the game sort of progressed and as it was, coming towards the end of the game where we sort of knew that Norwich were going to go on and lift the playoff final trophy, did your mind sort of already switch to next season and the fact that you wanted to, right the wrongs of how it had ended really that season? Because apart from the playoff final, it had been such a positive season for the club.
I was angry. I was angry at myself. I was angry at everything at the time. I didn't even look Norwich lifting the cup. I refused. Everyone was watching now. I refused to turn my head around and watch them lift it because I thought that we should be there. But as you said, as soon as we got off the game, the focus was the next season, and I was determined 100% to make it right the next season, and all the boys were as well. I think most of our interviews were to the same line, basically saying that we're going to come back stronger and we're going to put it right. But we did. It was even bigger ask because you have to back yourself up saying those things. But we did. We showed good character in the following season.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much time more longer on it, but you say there you acted, angrily, and different people react in different ways. There's that it's become almost famous photo now of Grant Ledbetter looking directly at Norwich lifting the trophy. I mean, what was the dressing room like after that? Because it was such a difficult occasion, especially given the two early goals.
It was horrible. This is the difference of games like that. It's one extreme to the other. If you're the winning side of a game like this, it's the best occasion. If you're not, it's the worst. But we had that experience from there, and I think that helped us for the season after, because we didn't want to experience it again. So it was a good lesson. It was a good slap, and but we learned from it, and I think that's the most important thing for the season that followed.
Yeah, so going into that next season, Dimi, was the aim set by the full club, the coaching staff and the playing staff to get into that top two this time and to get automatically promoted?
Yeah, because we had a good squad, we had a good core of players, and we added some really good quality players, and we were the favourites. We knew we were the favourites. We just had to, live up to it, and we did. The pressure is not. It's not easy when you are the favourite to maintain that, because the championship it's a very unforgiving league. You can't take anything for granted, no matter how good your squad is or your team is. If you don't put the performance or the effort in on every game, you're not getting anything. We saw in a few occasions that season, but we knew we had to get promoted.
Yeah, and obviously in that season, you speak about a few times that really we were sort of, because as you say, we were favourites. So there was a few upsets along the way and what turned out to be an absolute roller coaster of a season. Early on in October, I think it was, there was the Cardiff away game, and I think it was 2-0 that night. I may be wrong again, but we 1-0. Yeah, we weren't on the right side of the result. And then again, since obviously that season happened and it's come out in the press that after that result, Grant Ledbetter invited the whole squad round to his house, I think. At that moment, and he says himself, where, you know, he's done things like this before with other clubs and other teams, and perhaps, you know, maybe a few people turn up. He said at the moment when every single player, or almost every single player, turned up at his house, he knew at that point that the team was going to go up.
Yeah, it wasn't everyone. I think, well, the majority turned up, and at least more than half of us stayed until the end. It was a really good night. But I thought it was a great gesture from Grant. We needed that at the time. We needed a little bit of getting a bit of steam off, and you know, having a few laughs, and just basically relaxing together, because the pressure is big. So yeah, it was a great move, and we enjoyed that night. And after that, the atmosphere was a bit better in the dressing room, for sure.
Yeah, well, after that, I think it was a run of 11 wins out of the next 13 games. So certainly, I think that night definitely helped. I'm not sure what you were drinking that night, but it certainly got the team going.
I'm not sure it was.
Do you think at this point, you know, after that night and when the team had been on such a good run, was this the point in the season where you started thinking, if we can just continue this form, continue as such a close-knit team, that, you know, we can go all the way? Was there any doubts at this point whether, you know, this team would be stopped, really? Because if I remember, and I'm sure Nathan, you do as well, we were just sort of steamrolling past teams, really.
We knew that this form wasn't possible to continue all the way to the end, because at some point you're going to lose. We just thought that we have to try not to get into a run of defeats, because that's why you can't afford, really. We knew that as soon as you know, when we get one bad result, we have to bounce back straight away. So yeah, that was, I think, Bristol City, the bad result away, which killed my record. Obviously now I've got it equal, but I was about to break it, the consecutive clean sheets. And it was a really frustrating game, because we should have won it, but we had chances the first half. They were really low in confidence, and then us in the scoring just grew into the game. And last kick of the game, corner kick, it was just a luck. But we knew after this that, you know, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, you know, we're not going to sail through the league, because there were other clubs that were chasing us. There were good forms. It was just a matter of keeping our heads together and not get into a run of bad results.
Yeah, you speak about, obviously, your record there. I think it was 9 consecutive clean sheets. During that time, there was a bit of a sort of rumour going around that once the run had started, you'd actually started writing the amount of minutes that the team hadn't conceded for on your hands. Is that correct?
No, I don't know how I started. I think I don't know who started the rumour. I wasn't writing anything. I was just going to the lads at the back and telling them that this is us. We do this together. We had a ritual with George before every game. I think many people knew it as well. He would come to the edge of my box, and we would, you know, give high fives, and I had to smack his bum for good luck. And one game that I wasn't playing, it was a cup, and Thomas was playing. He said to me after the game, I went to Thomas and I gave him my hand, but I didn't get no sugar.
Well, I think it was actually George Friend which said that in an interview. So perhaps you'll have to ask him about that, because for years now I've believed the story about the writing on hands. So it's a little bit of a disappointment to hear that wasn't all true. But yeah, you did obviously hold that record, and an incredibly impressive record at that. After that run of games, really, there was starting to be a little bit of inconsistency. And then I think it all sort of peaked at the point of Rotherham away. And of course, we now know that as the game before Aitor Karanka actually walked out, really. Before that game, was there anything sort of showing or a little sense that a few things might not be right and there was a few things starting to perhaps go wrong?
Not really, because we went into this game confident that we were going to win it, and we did have, I think, we had numerous chances in that game to win it, like really good chances to put it to bed, and it wasn't going in. And you knew, games like this, that you don't take your chances, you're going to get punished, and in the end, we did. But it was, even after the game, it wasn't a case of, a row in the dressing room or anything. We were disappointed. But the whole thing with Aitor came out of the blue the next day or the day after into training ground. Started with a simple conversation or meeting with the lads, and escalated, and all of a sudden the manager was walking away. It was a bit surreal.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously the next day, and obviously as fans, we were sort of hearing a few rumours, and to be honest, I don't think anyone actually believed it. As you say, it was a bit surreal. So when the rumours started sort of circulating, everyone was thinking, someone's on a bit of a wind up here. But Stuart Downing recently come out and did an interview and said that it sort of started really that the manager at the time, obviously Aitor Karanka, had a book that he was just writing down things that were annoying him. Now, obviously, you don't have to say what happened that day, but is that sort of kind of what sparked it off, really?
It was because I thought, going into that meeting, I thought it was a meeting to sort of to encourage everyone and, say just what's happened. The game, we lost the game. Let's kick on from here. I thought that was the meeting that we're going into. But then Aitor came in and started telling people off. And there was already a charged atmosphere because of the defeat, I think. And then obviously escalated from that. I think that's caught a lot of people by surprise, because it caught me by surprise, because I wasn't expecting him to start being aggressive to the players. But it was. So I guess in his mind, he was expecting a different reaction, and it didn't work out. And he ended up leaving for a couple of games. But yeah, I made it a bit more spicy for the fans.
Yeah, just looking at that there as well, Dimi. Like, what was the overall sort of reaction from the players? Was it more shock than anger, or were some players quite angry at what had happened during that meeting?
Him walking out?
Yeah, well, in the meeting prior to him walking out, yeah.
No, I can only speak of myself. I wasn't happy with the situation there, and I thought, the atmosphere wasn't the best. But it wasn't with everyone. I think a lot of the players were just waiting for the meeting to finish. And then obviously, with a few players, they started exchanging words, and it went from there. But the fact that he walked out, it was a shock. Me and I think Grant tried to talk to him, to tell him that we've got 10 games left. It's not the time to do that. But Aitor was a very stubborn man, and he, when he gets something in his head, he usually follows it through. So he did walk away, and it was a strange atmosphere, and obviously reflected from the game next after that, Charlton.
Yeah, and on to that next game, obviously Charlton, it was a weird atmosphere, as you say, with Charlton protesting at the time. I think Steve Agnew took the team that day, and of course we were defeated. But even after that result, did yourself, I know you can only speak for yourself, but did all the players sort of think that was the end of Karanka, and probably you were never going to be managed by him again at Middlesbrough?
I was quite close with Aitor, and I had a few messages with him, and I was telling him that you got to get back, and we've got 10 games. And he was saying, "Yeah, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay." So I knew he wasn't really his mind wasn't set to leave. I think it was the tantrum between manager and players and domestic, if you like, and then you kiss and make up. But yeah, I wasn't expecting him to leave, and obviously when he came back, I was trying to tell to the lads because you talk about it in the dressing room, and people have different opinions. I was I was saying that there's 10 games. Change the manager now. It's not going to help anything. We could potentially lose the promotion if we start fresh with a new manager now, or not have the manager that took us there. So I think most players were on the same page, and the manager came back and got short because we went 10 games unbeaten after this.
Yeah, you certainly did. Just on that Charlton game, I mean, apart from the fact that at the time, obviously, there was the whole drama about Aitor Karanka, what a weird atmosphere that must have been trying to play in, because Charlton fans were throwing tennis balls on the pitch, I seem to remember. So that must have been so strange.
What a strange game, and it's just ridiculous from the beginning. They had their own problems. We had our own problems. Then both of our problems collided on the pitch. They were throwing tennis balls. The game was stopping. It wasn't a game that. It wasn't an enjoyable game at all. And obviously, us conceding the goals in the second half made it even worse. And it showed to everyone that it wasn't the time for the manager to walk away.
Yeah, and then obviously, as you say, we then moved on to the whole game next. And of course, Karanka was back. We had the assurances that, it had all been put to bed, the problems, and it was going to sort of continue with Karanka until the end of the season. We then score very late on against Hull. And I think that result and the fact it was such a late winner, obviously you can tell us more, but surely that galvanised the squad again.
Yeah, 100%. Hull was one of the immediate contenders, immediate rivals for automatic, and we knew that was a must-win game. It was a 6-pointer, and we did well. I think we had a game plan, and we had to be patient because they were a quality team. We knew we had to be careful at the back because they had players that could hurt us. But I think the way the game was going, you could tell it would be a 1-goal game. Whoever scores it, he'll go and win it, probably. And obviously, when Nuge done that header, it was a jubilation. It was a really good feeling because I thought, we could beat them right after what happened. We got a lot of mental strength to carry on to the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely. It was a real theme towards the end of that season, actually, the late goals. Of course, Bolton, Redding, Adam Forshaw, all great moments, I'm sure. Just as much for us as they were for you. But, when Adam Forshaw, as I mentioned, sticks it in, last kick of the game almost against Reading, and then Jordan Rhodes pops up at Bolton. At this point, I know, whilst you're still playing, players give the typical, we're just taking it one game at a time. But when these late winners are going in, are you starting to believe deep down?
Yeah, of course. It shows that the team's got resilience in situations like that. This is what you need. High pressure times need resilient characters and characters who can produce under pressure. And if we knew that if we can do it in games like that at that time of the game, then we definitely have what it takes to get promoted. And another one was obviously the Brighton game.
Yeah, and obviously after those 6 wins there, a few late winners, it resulted in us conceding a late winner at Burnley and then 3 draws in a row. Ipswich followed the Burnley game, and then there was that Friday night at Birmingham where I'm sure the players felt after full time as well that we were a bit hard done by with that offside decision for Daniel Ayala's 3rd goal. But that set up a promotion decider. Obviously, Brighton at home, both level on points, and we needed to get a result from that game to get promoted. So going into that game, how confident were the players? Were they at all fazed by the occasion, or was it just, this is our time?
You cannot not be fazed, not be sort of, you have to be deaf or blind not to see the high, the wick, leading to the game. So these days, especially with the media and the social media, it was everywhere. So you do read about it, you do hear about it. You just play your game. That's certainly what I did. As soon as you get on the pitch, it's a different story. But it was pressure for sure. I don't know if it ever happened this before. The 2 teams to be equal on points and just chasing one spot really. So it was a cup final. Some of the lads were saying that they would prefer if we had to win instead of just needing a draw, because it makes you in your head a bit more complacent if you think you only need a draw, which was true, I thought, because while we were at it and we were pressing, we were creating chances. And then when we were trying to protect the draw, even though they had 10 men, we looked a bit edgy. So in the end, though, it turned out good. A very good day.
Yeah, just sort of going back to the start of the Brighton game, really. Obviously, amongst the nerves, I think, everyone's watched it back. Nathan, I'm sure you have as well. And Dimi, I'm sure you have. I must have watched that Brighton game back at least sort of 20, 30, 40 times now. And actually, when you watch the game back, we actually started quite well. And of course, when Christian Stuani scores, the whole stadium erupts, of course. A moment for history, really. But then from that point onwards, we actually had quite a considerable amount of chances to extend the lead. Did you go in at half-time sort of a little bit disappointed that it was only 1?
We did. I thought we should be at least 2 or 3. We could, potentially put the game to bed by that time. And when you go in 1-0, that it's a very tricky scoreline to go in. You're ahead. It only takes a second for everything to turn around, and it did. It was a moment of not focusing on our set play and header, which wasn't meant. I don't think it. Still goes there. I don't think he meant it to put it in. He just looped it over me and it just went in. And then from then on, this is when you need the characters. Obviously, them going to 10 players sort of made it a bit better, I think, especially for the fans, to relax a little bit more. But we had opportunities there to go on and make it 2-1 and maybe 3-1 and just finish the game. But it was a special game, so you can't really blame anyone for being a bit more edgy than usual.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're all waiting for the moment where we talk about that famous catch. But just on the red card, did you feel as though that changed the full game? Because actually, usually you watch football matches and as soon as a team goes down to 10, the whole thing changes. But probably more so from a fan perspective, I almost felt more nervous as soon as they went down to 10 men. So did you notice a change in sort of the way that the game was going?
They had nothing to lose. For me, it was nothing done, because as soon as they went down, for them it was a case of all he needs something to drop in the box and be a bit fortunate and just stick it in. So I knew after that they went down 10 men, that we needed another goal to just relax everyone. But it wasn't coming. And in the last 8 minutes of the injury time, we just had to dig in, and we had to be solid. We had to, avoid mistakes, just get the ball out of the box. And it was a case of, doing what we did all season, really.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned the 8 minutes there, and I mean, I can imagine for you, you probably concentrated more in those 8 minutes than perhaps you may have in any other game of football. And for Nathan, me, and you watching as fans, those 8 minutes felt like a full another 90 minutes. To be honest with you,
The worst thing is that you don't really. The clock stops on the 90 minutes in the Riverside, so you don't know how many minutes it's gone past. And when it's 8 minutes, it's a long time. So, I had no idea where we're at. I was, you're trying sometimes to gather up reactions of the fans or the players or the bench, because you can't even ask. It's a mayhem going on all over the pitch. I just knew that we was about to end after I caught the ball, when I seen everyone celebrating with their arms in the air, our players. I just thought, I think that's it. Because it was like we scored a goal. And obviously then after that, I got up. I was eyeballing Mike Dean to blow the whistle. And he teased me a little bit. He went all the way to the pitch, the halfway line, and then he blew. Well, it was good.
yeah, obviously just on that catch, Dimi. Now, I think it wouldn't be too much of an overstatement to say that, that moment where Bruno lofts it into the box. And again, I said that the minute of added time felt like an age, but even watching that ball be clipped into the box felt like about a minute on its own. And whilst you're watching the ball come down, and just thinking, just catch this and it's done. I mean, I'm sure you can't describe what was going through your head, but just describe the feeling when the ball is now in your hands. And as you say, you hear the cheer and think, yeah, I think we've done it now.
When it happened, when the ball was kicked, I just reacted out of instinct. I seen the ball that I thought that would be my ball, and I went for it. That I would go in any other situation. But obviously, during that time, I was expecting a lot of contact, because it's the last kick of the most important game of the season. I was expecting the whole Brighton squad to be on top of me by the time the ball reached the box. But I was well protected by the boys. And I don't think they had many players in the box. I don't know why for that at the time. So I was able to jump, basically unchallenged, and it's just a matter of getting it right and not flapping or something like that. But when I got it and I went on the floor, I remember Danny came over and just patted me at the back or the shoulder. I didn't even ask what was going on. I looked lost on the video. I looked, what's going on. But I've seen the other boys with their hands up in the air, celebrating, and I thought, surely that's it. Surely that must be it. I've seen a few fans edging closer to the pitch. So I thought, that must be it. I have to hold on to the ball as much as I can before I kick it. But Mike didn't, obviously blew the whistle before I kicked it, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, obviously the scenes which followed that kick, the pitch was swarmed by Middlesbrough fans. Of course, that full season of ups and downs comes to an end. And of course, we reach the Premier League. Just talk us through, the scenes on the pitch, really, because I can imagine, as much as you were excited, it was, probably quite concerning that about, 10,000 people are trying to get you around the neck, take a selfie, celebrate with you. I mean, what was that like?
I nearly left the pitch naked. People were putting some on one of my socks. They took my gloves off, my shorts. They were trying to get my shirt off. And it was just, in a way, you don't enjoy it as much, not because of the fans, because of the actual reality that hit at the time. You don't realize what you have achieved, really. until you actually, it's about an hour's done. You spoke to your family or your friends. Um, but at the time, you just, like, you could see in my, I've seen a few videos after the game. I look like I'm just, what's happening? I don't know what's happening here. I'm just smiling with the rest of the crowd. But it did feel like the closest I can describe it, it was like a relief, uh, like a weight getting off the shoulders. You know, knowing that you made it. That was a great feeling.
Yeah, and of course, after you'd celebrated on the pitch, of course, the fans went back into the seats, celebrated on the pitch with the rest of the squad and lifted the trophy. And of course, that is all great. But of course, the juicy part of promotion, the after celebrations, I mean, how heavy were the next few days and nights after celebrating what was, such a big moment for the town and for the club as well?
We had a great night on the night of the game at the Rockcliffe with everyone, all the staff, and we had I don't know if it was the next day or the day after, the Dickens, the players. I think a lot of players. I was expecting the open bus tour, but it didn't happen because I had to go, and I don't know, for various reasons. I thought that would be a uh, great situation, great atmosphere, for the town and all that. I think a lot of players obviously went on holidays. I had planned my holidays, but it was the nights that we got together, the 2 or 3 times we got together after the year, it was just phenomenal. You don't know when it's going to end, and it's just an all around great atmosphere to be in.
Yeah, in typical Middlesbrough fashion, instead of doing the open top bus, everyone just piles into the Dickens and has a few drinks. Yeah, well, we got some quite fantastic videos and photos of that, of course, from that day. Adam Clayton on the roof of the Dickens sticks out, I think, for everyone. That was a special moment. But yeah, just overall, a quite brilliant couple of days, I'm sure, for yourself. And yeah, for the town and the club, it was to end, after such a long time not being in the Premier League, it was just amazing, really. We move on to the Premier League now, and after a remarkable season from yourself, from the rest of the team, keeping so many clean sheets, at this point, do you think you deserve a chance in the Premier League? Of course, we'll get on to the signings that the club made, but were you ready for the challenge of the Premier League and excited to see how it went?
Oh yeah, 100%. I was buzzing. I wanted to try myself against the best in the country and potentially in the world, and that's what we were working for the season before. I was ready 100%, and I didn't think I deserved to take the shed home or anything like that. I just thought I deserved to show that I can play and I can compete in the Premier League. But unfortunately, I wasn't given that chance, and that was the most frustrating part.
Yeah, of course, we made the signing of Victor Valdez and of course Brad Guzan come into the club as well. But, as you say there, after the sheer jubilation of getting promoted, and as you say, you were an integral part of that, how disappointing was it? And even the way that the season panned out, that towards the end of the season when, me and Nathan can say as fans, there was the 2 goalkeepers didn't deserve to continue playing. Did you feel you even just deserved some games at the end of that season? Because I can't imagine how disappointed you must have been.
I just thought we lost our identity a little bit. I didn't think a lot of players that came in cared about the club or if the club's going to stay in the Premier League or not, and that made it a bit more difficult. We lost a bit the togetherness that we had. For me, it was sadly disappointing because, seeing someone else playing and not playing very well, and basically throwing away all your efforts of full season last season, it was frustrating, and I just couldn't understand it. But I had to be professional and I had to carry on, and I didn't want to cause a problem or an issue at the club, so I just kept my head down.
Yeah, obviously at the time, I think just Nathan, between ourselves, how disappointed were you personally? Because I know I speak for myself, and I'm sure Nathan feels the same way. I think you mentioned to me the other day that at Liverpool away, Dimi, I think you must have started warming up and received almost a raw, as if it was a goal that, the Middlesbrough fans wanted you to have that moment of, as much as the season had gone wrong, a moment to play in the Premier League. So Nathan, I mean, how disappointed were you when really, as Dimi says as well, there was two people in goal that season that weren't doing the job that they were supposed to be?
Yeah, I think I could speak for most fans that Dimi, you were unfairly treated in that Premier League season, if I'm honest. Late towards the end of that season, it was perfect to just play the players that had got us into the Premier League from the Championship, the players that were still there, of course. We saw a few players leave, but yeah, that Liverpool away game stands out for me. I was in that away on that day, and I remember you did come up and warm up and received a big roar from the Boro fans that day. And yeah, I think it was a nice moment and one that you deserved as well.
It was brilliant because when I was in the game 3-0, getting relegated, and the fans were singing my name for about 30 minutes in the second half. It's just, you can't ask for much more as a player. It was a really humbling experience. And it was funny as well because at the end of the game, Brad came out as we were walking in the tunnel. He said to me, "They're all yours, Tim." It was, you could tell that the relationship with the fans wasn't the best and that's purely because as much as I like him as a person and as a goalkeeper, he had some bad games and it didn't work really out for him. But it was a funny moment because he was finally, that was the last game of the season and he was going to go. And that was even more frustrating because there was a keeper that didn't want to play at the club. There was another one who already signed for another club. And it was me who wanted to play. I was with the club and I didn't get a chance. As you said, it was frustrating.
Yeah, and then moving on from obviously the Premier League season and the disappointment of that, going into pre-season, we then saw the change of manager. Did you then think, well, although I didn't get my chance in the Premier League, then, those two keepers that you mentioned have gone elsewhere now. Did you think, well, I should sort of be given my chance now and retake the number one spot, really?
I've always, all my career, start of the season, I always aim for the number one spot, no matter who's there or what they are. So that was no different. I had offers from other clubs, championship clubs, but Middlesbrough didn't want to let me go. So I was really happy to stay at Middlesbrough, to fight for my place. But again, I don't think it was an even battle from the start. I think the manager brought Rams in as a number one, and he would get the first option. But then again, it's you have to be professional. I've never believed in players that cause arguments in the club. If they're not getting what they wanted, that's if you care about the club, you can't do that.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, from that point onwards, you stayed at the club for another 2 years. Of course, we saw another change of manager, Tony Pulis, come into the club. And in the season, I think next, obviously, he saw the season out in the playoffs. And then in his first full season, we, of course, saw you get another record. I know you mentioned earlier, perhaps actually not a record that you like to be mentioned too much because it involves your age, but you did become the oldest player ever to play for the club. Now, was that a proud moment or something that you prefer not to mention?
No, it actually is, because it is a record to be fair. You know, it's not easy to get into 40s and still be at a high level. So yeah, and obviously it's something to be proud of, because you're in the history books of the club for another reason as well. And yeah, I'm quite proud of it as well. They're like the other records, and I'll have stories to tell my kids. You know.
Yeah, from that point, obviously, you did leave the club after a long spell, and probably longer than Tony Mowbray mentioned, as you said, when we were first going on about you signing for the club. You know, he said 5, and it ended up being longer than that. So you eventually departed, obviously. You went on to have brief spells at Hartlepool and Thornaby as well. Those two, probably you didn't play as many games as perhaps you may have hoped to. But did it get to the stage when you started, you know, thinking about retirement? Were you ready for that? Did you have any sort of idea what you wanted to go into after? Or were you sort of just ready to hang your gloves up and look back and think, yeah, I've done well there in my career?
I'm still even now, I'm not ready to hang my gloves up. I still take part in training. Sometimes I still have that bug, and I was I felt good. I felt okay physically, and so I thought I'd carry on and obviously keep busy. And then, you know, the pandemic came on, and I made it even like harder. But I didn't want to move away. You know, I had my kids, my family here, kids go to school here. So I didn't want to move away. There was a few options. So I decided to stay local, and I knew that the next step is staying football as a coach. And the immediate thing to do is be a goalkeeping coach, because that's my position. Ideally, I want to become a manager at some point. But for me to gain that experience means working with goalkeepers, which for me it's pretty natural thing to do, and gain experience by being in an office and staff, coach and stuff. So yeah, it was a slow process, but yeah, if you give me a pitch, I'll still play. Don't worry.
Definitely. Well, perhaps, you know, you might even get the call up for Hartlepool this season, or even Middlesbrough. Who knows? You know, we need someone in goal with a bit of promotion experience. So maybe the phone might ring and Chris Wilder might give you a call. You mentioned, obviously, the coaching role that you're in now, goalkeeper coach at Hartlepool. Just how much are you enjoying that as a new experience, and working with the goalkeepers at Hartlepool?
I really enjoy it. It's very, I don't want to say easy, because nothing is easy in football. It's very natural, and I was lucky to have a lot of experience and a lot of work with very good coaches in my career, and managers. So taking something for every single one, it makes a very good base for me to start, and um, it comes sort of quite natural to me, because I can understand the keeper stuff. I am a keeper, but also I understand the players, because I've been around many dressing rooms, and I know, you know, I know football, I know the game. But I'm enjoying it because I have two great goalkeepers at the minute at Hartlepool. They work fantastically well. They take on board what we try to do, and it's a good environment to work in at the minute. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you have quite the FA Cup tie coming up. I'm sure you're excited for that.
Yeah, of course, it's a good game. it's Premiership side. We get to show what we're about, and it's the magic of the FA Cup. So you never know what's going to happen. We're going to give it a go, that's for sure.
Yeah, and also as well as your goalkeeping coaching with Hartlepool, recently you've also started up the DK goalkeeping academy. I very like the wording of that. Very smart, Dimi. Are you enjoying doing that, and what can kids of the local area expect from that?
100%, because I see there's a great satisfaction in seeing young kids developing into good keepers. And since the summer that we started, there's a lot of kids, different ages, that are doing really well at their clubs, that progressed, and see them getting man of the match awards, and getting mentioned in different websites for their performance. It's fantastic, and for them as well, because they see the results, and it's a great. It gives you it's satisfaction to do something like that, because I was a kid, I was like them, and I was trying to be what I've become. So yeah, why not them as well? So, there's many decent little goalkeepers around the area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it is very good, Dewey, the new DK goalkeeping academy. Of course, now with you being a goalkeeping coach at Hartlepool, you are busy on weekends, but have you seen that much at all of Boro this season? And if you have seen Boro in, recent weeks, really, under Chris Wilder, what are your thoughts on the current side? Do you think they have the promotion credentials that your side had?
I've seen a few games. Yeah, I've actually been to the Riverside a couple of times when we didn't have a game, and watched. To be fair, they looked like a rejuvenated team. I knew there was quality and some good players in the team, but I think Chris Wilder coming in gave them that extra boost of confidence that they needed, and they look like they're playing with a purpose now. They look like they can go into every game and challenge. So yeah, I do think there's a genuine chance for them to be in at least the playoffs this season. Not going to be easy, that's for sure. But it's January, there might be a couple of more additions, so who knows? It could end up being a great season in the end.
Yeah, and just to finish up, really, Dimi, obviously you had, from what we and slightly biasedly see, probably one of the greatest spells of your career at Middlesbrough. Of course, all of the Middlesbrough fans will be forever grateful for some of the moments that you gave us in a Middlesbrough shirt, and of course that catch against Brighton. But just to finish off, do you have anything that you would like to say to the Middlesbrough fans that might be watching this?
Me and the Middlesbrough fans are sharing, great respect and neutral, I think, love, because I keep saying that the players don't make a club, managers don't make a club, even chairman don't make a club, the fans make a club. And this is a good club because the fans are good. And I knew it since the beginning that since I first went into club, since my first game playing for Middlesbrough, I felt good. And obviously that bond developed even more. And yeah, I mean, Middlesbrough will be forever in my heart, because I played my best seasons at Middlesbrough. I shared some great moments, and I don't know. Hopefully, that's not the end of the journey with me and Middlesbrough.
Well, hopefully not, Dimi. Perhaps we may see you back as you're doing very well at the moment with Hartlepool, but maybe we might see you back in a goalkeeping coach role at Middlesbrough, or perhaps, with your ambitions to become a manager, we might even see you on the touchline in the years to come. You never know, exactly. So yes, to Dimi, thank you very much for joining us. And of course, Nathan, as usual, for being on the Boropolis podcast. But from me, Nathan and Dimi, thank you very much for watching and listening. Please do subscribe and like. give us a review on all the audio platforms. And we look forward to seeing you hopefully with more ex-Middlesbrough players, with more interviews, and of course, the weekly Boropolis podcast. But again, from us, thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.